Wow, we're finally here. This is kind of the end. At the time of writing this script, Forgotten Land is the only main series game of its era, so yeah, Star Allies is the final game we're covering for a completed string of games. And while that's kind of sad, I'm also thrilled to get this massive workload off of me, so let's get started. Before we start the video today, though, and trust me, I really want to start, if you like the video and want to tell me that it's the best, feel free to give the video a like, ring the notification bell after subscribing to really help me out, and let me know in the comments what you think of Kirby Star Allies. Also, if you want to see a video like this for every main series Kirby game, you can check out the playlist for Kirby Month 4 that I have, where I cover why any game in this series is the worst and the best. If you check those out, you'll have a great time, and I'd really appreciate it. Alright, here we go. You know what? A lot of the finer details are actually spoilers, so all I can really say for the plot synopsis is that dark, infected hearts fall on Popstar, corrupting almost everyone, including Day-to-Day, but not a napping, as always, Kirby. Kirby actually has a far purer heart, allowing him to toss friend hearts at enemies to become friends. Find out the source of these weird-looking hearts and save your friends. The Allies part of Star Allies is a very important piece of the puzzle here. Not the literal puzzles that are in this game, but maybe, just maybe, the appeal of Star Allies were the friends we made along the way. Even just talking on a basic level, being able to befriend an enemy you really like, let's say Waddle Doo for the beam attack, and then piggyback on them and actually take control of your new friend is a blast. This is pretty big on all fronts, as channel familiars may know that Poppy Bros breaks the game apart in terms of boss fights for the post-game modes, and like I said, casually, you get to control people. What's not to love? But the real fun is with the Dream Friends. Even the default 3 of Day-to-Day, Meta Knight, and Bandanity are welcome additions. It isn't often you get to play as any of them during a main adventure. And from the second the game was made available, Bandanity was available. You had to unlock Day-to-Day and Meta Knight, resulting in another major W for Bandanity. He's the goodest boy and deserves it all. But once the updates started rolling in and we got classic characters, it was done, and Star Allies could solidify itself as the best game for many a longtime fan. Were there a lot of Dreamland 2 fans playing Star Allies when it came out? Who knows, but it sure as heck felt like it with all of the love going around for Rick. And while Marks buried up some trust issue related memories, actually getting to play as Marks in a Kirby game was just unbelievable. Nothing felt sacrificed for the character coming in, still having the bouncing ball to move around with, his boss fight form to cause all kinds of chaos, and who can forget that adorable, punchable face? But who can forget the one, the only, Gooey? The magic of Star Allies was in full effect here, as when Gooey initially came out, I remember many people saying that Gooey didn't really matter. Rick and Marks were right there, who cares about Gooey? But it didn't take very long for Gooey and his wonderful gooiness to win people over. His tongue attack having the same properties and functionality as Whip is the funniest part. Then we got the next batch announced in reverse order, and who else to start with but Daroche? Seeing every member of the Squeaks be in Daroche's moveset, all while keeping every element of his boss fights intact, reminds you of just how much fun the Squeak Squad parts of Squeak Squad really were. Then you see Dark Meta Knight running around, using elements of not only Sword like normal Meta Knight, but combining them with the elements of Mirror, a fan-favorite ability not even in Star Allies, and you're just dazzled. Of course, anyone around at the time remembers how much the community lost their collective minds at not only the return of the Kirby 64 fan-favorite Adeline, but also seeing the Fairy Ribbon tag alongside her. I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that, of all the Dream Friends, these two are hands down the cutest. Their high five mirroring what Kirby and Waddle Dee did in a cutscene is such an adorable attention to detail. The final wave of Dream Friends were the least nostalgic, for sure, but at the same time, I know a lot of you viewers watching were feeling very nostalgic watching the Return to Dreamland video. Watching that Magolor announcement trailer and seeing all the nods to that game was really something else. As were the Gem Apples. Taranta was a pretty big deal for a lot of people too, as for many, it was when they realized, oh shoot, the devs actually know the memes that we meme about. Without spoiling anything major, the Taranta crying at the end of the trailer, hilarious stuff. And of course, who can forget Susie? In Star Allies, she has a gun, but she also takes cues from Jet and the Robobot armor, able to combine with ability elements to tear things apart. My point is, Star Allies is a celebration, going through the story mode, befriending enemies, and playing as series staples in a brand new way, getting to the end game and experiencing the single best climax of any Kirby game to date, unlocking the post-game modes and discovering that they're even better, like speedrunning an abridged version of the game as friends, or the dream friends that get redone levels from their own games, solving the puzzles of Heroes in Another Dimension, which feels like a natural blend of a Sakurai game like Superstar and a Shimomura game like Crystal Shards, blasting through the ultimate choice on one of 8 or 9 difficulty levels, culminating with a brand new final boss. It all celebrates Kirby, and that's why Star Allies is the best game in the series. Remember last time in the Planet Robobot video when I said I didn't have to do my job because everyone loves that game? Do an Uno flip and you've got Star Allies. When this game came out, it had its fans, but a lot of people really did not like it. The reasoning is, as per usual, is very simple. There is nothing to the story mode here. Mind you, the story mode is the main mode of the game, what everyone will actually play, start to finish, the most important part of the game, etc. So why even bother playing it if the good stuff is everything leading up to it, you know, the original content that you experience for the first time blind, so bad? You often hear that these levels were made for the multiplayer, but if you look at games like Amazing Mirror and Return to Dreamland, they have far more memorable levels and set pieces, and those are also multiplayer. If you look at Star Allies as a single-player game, it fares so much worse, not only as a standalone game, but also compared to others before it, like Crystal Shards, Squeak Squad, Planet Robobot, all of them. The problem with these levels is that nothing happens in them. You run, you jump, suck up enemies, and maybe take their powers, maybe not, I don't know, up to you. You climb ladders, solve some basic puzzles, grab puzzle pieces to unlock. Puzzles? Really? Okay. Anyway, it all just amounts to a game with very little in the way of memorable set pieces, which is a shame because just about every Kirby game prior was able to find a great balance of visual spectacle and fun gameplay. Star Allies ends up with neither. While not the only reason, a big culprit as to why the game feels so dry is because this is the 4th game in a row with this exact same style. I criticized Planet Robobot for having this issue as the 3rd, and while Star Allies doesn't copy the exact same look of the game before it like Robobot did, it still struggles to find any kind of identity because the formula it's using has grown so tired, with some of the blandest levels in the series, and a forced multiplayer gimmick that either grinds the fun multiplayer pace to a halt, adds more tedium to a boring single-player mode, or it can just be skipped altogether. And unlike, say, the Animal Buddies, many times you aren't missing out on much, even for 100%. It all feels very been there, done that, even if you're new to the series. In 2018, this is unacceptable. And those post-game modes, they can be enjoyable for a playthrough or two, but many of them encourage you to clear the mode with every single ability in the whole game. It's just so much, and why the game is so bent on limiting you to use one ability instead of giving you ones at random like the older games is beyond me. At least give players a choice of what you want to go with, like what Superstar Ultra did. Speaking of that game, I am aware that Helper to Hero also technically has you go through Helper to Hero with every ability, which would mean that's a flaw at a glance, but that mode is so much shorter with so many less abilities to go through with. The game is just a total disaster, riddled with bland levels, a severe lack of meaningful content, and the worst sense of deja vu in the series. And for those out there that do think this is a problem, again, I don't, but every game in the series before this ran at 60 frames per second. Star Allies, with visual compromises like the blurry backgrounds, still have to be 30, and sometimes the frame rate can even dip if you have too many Dream Friends on the screen. If Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot 3DS games never once go below 60, that makes Star Allies the worst game in the series. And everything else. Surprisingly, things on my Discord were pretty positive when I asked. Not that I expected a riot or anything, but Star Allies isn't really what I'd call popular, and maybe it's because the server has a lot of people who've played the other games, so things like a middling story mode don't bother them as much. The post-game was definitely a real highlight with replayability. being the major highlight, but not negative doesn't always equal positive. While everyone had their fun with it, only a few people really liked it. I remember when Star Allies initially came out and people either really liked it or really hated it. There were people saying that the game wasn't bad, but once the next game would come out, nobody would really talk about it anymore. Ironically, I feel like the opposite happened. Forgotten Land did a lot right for a lot of people, but now that we're finally into the next era of Kirby, we can look back at Star Allies as the final hurrah of a 30-year-long string of games. Of course, we'll be getting more 2D games in the future, but only from the lens of a post-Forgotten Land world. Star Allies is an experience. As a game, it has a lot of problems, ones that I can't blame people for not being able to look past. There is definitely a lot of love and care put into it, despite the troubled development, but that can only get you so far. Even if the post-game content is better, it doesn't change the fact that the story mode you'll be spending at least 5 hours with, unless you're a speedrunner, is boring. I know people like it, and I don't want to take that away from anybody, but in the grand scheme of things, the levels don't offer much. Still, I think the multiplayer can make the story mode a good time, and the post-game is great regardless. Those who stuck with it certainly had some issues to deal with, but they also found a game with a lot of care put into it, with some insane depth and replayability. Every ability has some form of insanity going for it, making replete playthroughs of Guest Star Allies, the ultimate choice, and even Heroes in Another Dimension really fun. I still don't think the game is amazing, but maybe, just maybe, it wasn't the end of the world for Kirby that, I hate to say it like this, but some of the more obnoxious people on the internet made it out to be. But my own personal thoughts on the game myself, it's just good, middle of the pack. I prefer Rainbow, guys.